Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to kick off SABR Day Weekend!
The SABR Sneak attack.
That's a running jump.
Oh. Look at that.
I'm sure you've already seen this, but take another look. This was the most amazing shot of the tournament thus far.
Look at that.
You could even argue it was more impressive than a saber.
Look at that.
Or a tweener.
Look at that.
Comment below your favorite Roger Federer saber moment, or maybe a Nick Kyrgios saber moment. Funny enough, Nick Kyrgios did attempt a couple of sabers against Roger, even imitated his serve at one point. Check out this one from JD. Today on the SABR Day Weekend Kickoff Special, just when people were starting to lose belief, even diehard Fed fans, Roger gives us a masterclass in a match that many thought he would lose. We'll talk about that. Also, what's the one stat that Roger Federer is doing the worst at ever in his career this year? We'll talk about that. And of course, we'll look up, we'll look down, we'll look left, and we'll look right. That's right, folks. We'll look up, down, left, right after the weather report and try to predict what will unfold at this 2018 U.S. Open and much, much more on Coffee Break Tennis SABR Day Weekend Kickoff Special. Let's get into it. Oh, welcome to Coffee Break Tennis. I start the show. Actually, we'll go to the computer to start today's show. I, of course, am your host, the ultimate Fed head, the king of the Unibros, dressed in Uniqlo from head to toe, Matt Bradshaw. And instead of my usual coffee drink, I'm drinking a nice Deutscher beer to celebrate Roger's third round victory. Because I've been reading comments and reading tweets and reading INSTANTgram comments or whatever you call those, but reading all kinds of stuff. And my understanding is I'll have to take my old tradition of drinking a beer when Roger wins a major and turn it into a tradition of drinking one every time he wins any matches, because I've been told that it's all over for Roger Federer. Excuse me, even for the diehard fans. Let's start with some comments that I highlighted. Adelisa, why oh why do we have to see a Nick Kyrgios match this early? It hurts so bad already because I just have this feeling that our dear Roger is getting knocked out next round. I don't like this. This is the way I felt during Aussie 2017. Then the third round came and Roger brought his A game. I made a tweet kind of like that saying, don't worry, third rounds have been pretty good for Roger. I am wishing and hoping it would be like that, but man, Roger is not himself at all. That's Adelisa, who's usually a pretty upbeat Fed head in her comments. Roma. Based on what I saw this morning from Roger, he won't make it past Kyrgios if Kyrgios brings his A game, which he normally does against the top guys. In 2017, Fed was performing as an elite level. Still traded wins with Kyrgios, but what do you think will happen in their next match if Federer is making more unforced errors than winners against the likes of Benoit Paire? I mean, I've never seen Roger play so badly. He is done. Roger, out to Kyrgios. Mike Sheen prediction. Freddie Batista. Oh, this is nothing to do with it, but l'éléphant in la chambre. This is how you properly say elephant in the room. There's Mr. Goat. I think he might join us in a moment. Sharada K, another optimistic Fed head always. With the game Federer has shown today, I'd be happy if he gets past Kyrgios, let alone Djokovic. Sad, but true. Sorry to burst your bubble, Kevin Alonso says, but Federer has close to no chance of winning this tournament. Playing terrible. Suspect he'll be a major risk in next round against Kyrgios. Definitely loses before the final. Pathetic performance against Paire today. 39 unforced errors. Returns and forehands still shiza. With this kind of performance, forget Djokovic. He'll not even get past Kyrgios.
Man, that sucks!
He'll definitely not get past Kyrgios in straight sets and almost give him a tasty bagel. But Luka Banic puts it here very well, and I think Luka's on to something. RF is going to get so motivated if he beats Nick. Nick loves the big matches. I think he'll play good and better. Assume Roger will get through in 4. His fourth round will be easier. Millman. So look, I'll acknowledge the Benoit Paire match wasn't the greatest fact, let's bring up the stats from that match. So people talking about the unforced errors for Roger. So if you look at the numbers here in that match against Benoit Paire, Roger has 27 winners compared to 39 unforced errors. That does look pretty bad, but that's negative 12 differential. Not good, but look at Benoit Paire's. It's negative 22. And look at how the highlighted numbers are the better stats, you know? The only thing Benoit Paire is winning here is, yeah, he has one more ace, but he's got 6 more double faults, and he's running around the court a little bit more than Roger. Other than that, Roger has him beat in every single statistic. The great Andre Agassi once said, I think, comment below if I'm wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure Agassi was talking about the latter part of his career, the comeback, the shaved head Agassi, where he started winning majors again after people thought he was all done. And he said a big part of that, again, I think it was him, a big part of that was understanding that you don't have to play your very best to win. You just have to be better than the guy on the other side of the net on that specific day. And Roger clearly did that. Look, these were tough conditions on that day. It was very hot. It was very humid. And Roger doesn't like those conditions. I think that was a big part of what happened in Cincinnati was Roger was out there in humidity playing a lot of matches with no rest days in between. And then, of course, on one day having to play twice in one day. And I think that really drained him. On top of that, playing Benoit Paire is very tricky. Benoit Paire gives you no rhythm. Benoit Paire doesn't even know what he's going to do next, let alone the opponent trying to figure out what he's going to do next. And in a way, that was perfect preparation for Roger to play Nick Kyrgios. Benoit Paire and Nick Kyrgios, they have something in common. They can play a very high level of tennis. They have tremendous talent, and they are totally unpredictable and can go totally crazy, as we all know. In the Nishioka first round match, let me just point out this. Roger Federer had 14 aces with 56 winners on 32 unforced. Today, Roger 16 aces on 51 winners, 24 unforced. He's not playing bad at all. So even in that first set, even though Roger, well, there was an alarming statistic early on, and I've noticed a couple trends at the U.S. Open looking at stats this early even. We'll talk about that later in the show. In the first set, I did notice a bad stat, and that was, I believe it was Kyrgios. This was like 4 games in, pretty early, but still 4 games. Kyrgios had won 100% of his second serve points. I mean, he came out on fire. So 3-all, I think it was 3-all in the first set. Roger goes down love 40 on his serve. That was one of the biggest moments of the whole match because that could have changed everything, including someone like Nick Kyrgios, where things have to go well mentally or else he could have some kind of collapse. You know, maybe if he breaks there, he has confidence and is a totally different player for the rest of the match. Who knows? But Roger said in the press conference at 40-15, when he's down 15-40 serving, that Nick could have just hit a standard forehand to put him away on that point and get the break there. But instead, he tried to play a drop shot, trying to be a little more flashy, maybe, because they're asking in the press conference, they're asking Roger, you know, hey, do you think that Nick was trying to do a lot of highlight reel type shots rather than just playing smart tennis? And Roger said that could have cost Nick the match. And I saw comments from people during this, and I'll give it to you, when Roger loses 100% of second serves and Nick wins 100% of second serves early on, probably should be a little bit nervous. But I said, look, Roger Federer just needs to hold serve. Nick Kyrgios would be leading the ATP in all serving statistics if he didn't have all these major lapses in his game. So Roger just needs to hold serve and wait for the major lapse. Now, it wasn't a major lapse, but there was a miniature lapse when Roger finally broke Nick Kyrgios in that first set. Kyrgios had been hitting a lot of big first serves in. He missed a lot of first serves in that game when he got broken. And even more crucial than that, on break point, he comes to the net off of a second serve, seemingly not really with any real purpose or thought put into it. It wasn't like he had a strategy behind it. Just kind of randomly runs in because he's Nick Kyrgios and he does things randomly, and Roger comes up with the block, backhand block return up the line for the pass. Funny enough, Federer was asked about this very shot in the presser. He said, Nick, a little while ago was asked about what your greatest strength was as a player. He said your return of serve slice. No other player has a shot like that. Without that, you would not be where you are. Could you comment on that, Roger? Yeah, I mean, thanks for the compliment. I don't know. I still feel like probably other shots have won me my tournaments than my backhand, I guess. But it's a part of an entire game that I have. It just came natural, I guess. It's also part of maybe reading serves, reading service motions, reading ball tosses. And then here's the key. But when I'm really on the ball, making it time and time again, Roger, gotta make these returns. We saw what happened against Djokovic. Couldn't figure out how he wanted to try to hit his returns. I agree with Nick Kyrgios and what he said. What the journalist was talking about here was a couple days ago. I guess it was after his second round win. They asked him, what makes Roger special? What's his best shot or something like that? And Nick said he thinks that block return off the backhand, Federer can do it off the forehand too, but it's really sweet off the backhand is where you usually see the craziest returns, like that one where he breaks Nick Kyrgios in the first set. I agree with Nick Kyrgios. Nick Kyrgios said that Roger wouldn't be where he is today without that. Now, I like what Roger said. I agree more with that. It's part of an entire package. But it's a key thing. That's how he beat Andy Roddick in those Wimbledon finals, or at least a big part of it. Roddick's big serve was destroying everyone, but Roger's able to neutralize it with this block return. So when Roger was struggling with Djokovic in the Cincy final, I was really hoping, why doesn't he just, you know what, screw it, having trouble to return, let's just do only the block return. If Roger would have just committed to trying that return more, he probably would have found the rhythm on it, stick with it, then you can try some other returns later on to throw in a little variety. So the Omar of Oz gave me some awesome stats. This is, I talked about in the beginning of the show, the big stat that Roger has been pretty bad on this year. In fact, it's his worst year in history. What is the stat? And since Omar tweeted this, actually got a lot of retweets and thumbs up or hearts or whatever they do. He had to acknowledge that he made one mistake. So this is not a mistake. This is the worst season for Roger in terms of return games won percentage since 2000. And me and Omar were talking about this actually a little bit, and he said, one of the things you look at is when you look at serving stats, Roger is like tops. He's a top 20 in the world and in most statistics. But when you look at his returning statistics, he looks more like he's a top 50, top 100 player, whereas in his serving statistics, he's clearly very elite. So this year, Roger's winning 22.9% return games won. 2000, 19.3%. Roger's worst years ever this year. 2000, the worst ever. 2001, third worst. 2016, 24. 2009, 24. 2002, 25. 2013 to 2012, 25.9. Best years, 2007, 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2017, all years where he won multiple majors. But of course, Roger did win a major this year. He did win a major in 2009. He did win a major in 2012. So when I first saw this, I thought, that's incredible that his best number here ever was 2017, followed by the next year is his worst ever. But Omar made a mistake. He had to correct it. 2017 was not his best year. Actually, 2017 was 27%, which puts it better than all these years that Omar listed as worst seasons, and right underneath his worst of the best seasons, 2007, 28.6%. Now, somebody commented to Omar's tweet, I can't remember who, I'm sorry, but basically said, hey, look, Roger didn't play clay, and clay is the surface where you tend to get the most returns back into play. Clay is the surface where it's easiest to break serve. So that's a good point. But I still think Omar's overall point, and with that said, last year, 2017, Roger didn't play any clay, and he still has a pretty good number. So why is Roger down 5%, which, when his best number ever is about 31%, 5% is a lot. Why is he down 5% from his best year? He didn't play clay either last year, so that doesn't necessarily explain it. And I think it's as simple as this. I think Roger's just been thinking a lot more this year. I think this year there's way more expectation. People expect him to win everything this year after last year. Now I know there was also plenty of Andrew Prochnow out there who thought he got lucky in 2017 and he's really going to be awful this year. But I think there's been more pressure on Roger, more thinking, less instinct. And the thing that plagued Roger early in his career was he has so much game, so many options, he doesn't know what to do. That's what people always used to say when Roger was in his early 20s and was a teenager and was showing all the promise, all the talent, but still struggling. He said, oh, he's got so much going on in his head, he doesn't know what to do. He's just so good, he can't figure out which part of his game to use the most. I think maybe Roger's had a little bit of that on the return of serve this year. Not quite sure. After 2017, when he had such a great return year, he did so well with the one-handed backhand, was taking the ball so early, he was like sabering people all the time. We've seen less of the sabering this year compared to last year for sure. I think Roger's a little more confused on how to play his return of serve. I mean, it's no question, Roger absolutely knows what to do all the time on his own serve game. I mean, you could argue that his service game seems to be getting better and better every year. And his return game was a lot better last year, or at least one of the better years. This year, I think Roger's just not quite sure how aggressive he wants to be, how much he wants to chip it. Today was a good sign on the return of serve, and since that is the stat that's killing him, let's just look at, Omar doesn't factor in the U.S. Open, what's happening right now. Just want to let you guys know this. Rafa, first round, wins 47% of return points. Second round, 44. Third round, 37. Roger, first round, 49, 2 points better. Second round, 43, 1 point less. Third round, 38, 1 point better. I know Rafa just played Karen Khachanov, who has a monster serve, but Roger just played Nick Kyrgios, who has a monster serve. Roger just a little bit better, 2% better if you average these, 2 points better if you average these out. So Roger, if you average these numbers, just a tiny bit better, 1% better against the giant servers, Khachanov and Kyrgios. I know that doesn't necessarily mean that he's returning better than Rafa or something like that, but he's clearly returning comparable to Rafa, so I would say that this is an issue that he's handling a little better at the U.S. Open. So let's talk about some of the other matches. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on. One thing I have noticed is that since this court is so slow, and another thing is the weather conditions can really change things because, for instance, let's say, let's just talk about the weather for a moment. We'll do more on the weather in a little bit, but just one thing on the weather really quick. Yesterday, Rafa played in 73 degrees, cooler weather than today, 71% humidity, higher humidity. So cooler weather, slower ball, higher humidity, even slower ball, super slow. Today for Fed, this was better weather for him because it's 80, so the ball's moving a little faster, and 54, almost 20% less on the humidity. Humidity slows down the ball and also drains you of fluid, makes you sweat more. And it just makes me wonder, how are things going to play out? Well, you know what? Put the weather on the screen. Let's just knock out this whole weather section of the show and get it done with. This is part of the looking up, down, left, and right at the future of the tournament. And next week, this is what we got to look forward to. Monday will go back up really high to 90, 10 degrees hotter than today, 17 degrees hotter than yesterday, with the low on Monday being 78. When will 78 hit, too? Like, how late in the night session do you have to go to get to 78? Tuesday, 94, with the low being 79. Wednesday, which I could be wrong, but I think if we get that match that we're all anticipating, Djokovic versus Federer, I believe that would be Wednesday, high of 90, low of 77. Are they going to play day session, night session? I would guess night session. What's the humidity going to be like? You never know. The weather forecast doesn't predict what the humidity is going to do. Humidity is a major factor here because it drains you and it slows down the ball. Thursday, high of 91. So I would say, if we get Roger and Djokovic in any kind of weather close to 90 degrees, but with fairly low humidity, the conditions are going to play much faster than really any day of the tournament. So if Novak and Roger could play on Wednesday with something close to 90 degree heat, but maybe a lower humidity, you don't know at this stage. So it's going to be very interesting to track what happens with the weather, who plays who, and when. So one last thing on the weather. I was listening to Ryan Harrison a couple hours, I think, maybe 1 hour before Rafa started playing his match with Khachanov. And Harrison says, some of the usual stuff that I would say in the matchups like this, that Rafa's always in danger with a person like Khachanov because, this court's bouncing high and Rafa loves that and it's slow. But the problem with that is Khachanov is not as bothered by the high strike zone because, yes, Rafa gets the ball high above people's shoulders, like Roger's one-handed backhand above the shoulder. It's a tough shot for him to pull off. For Khachanov, not so bad. It's pretty much still in his preferable strike zone. On top of that, it's very slow, but we all know Rafa, yeah, he likes it slow, but not too slow, especially against a big, strong guy, because it makes it a little harder for him to hit the winners through the opponent versus Khachanov, strong enough to hit winners on any court, no matter how slow it is. Khachanov is always going to be strong enough. He's just such a powerful guy. So that's a big part of why we saw such tricky conditions. Ironically, they closed the roof. Normally, Rafa wouldn't want the roof to close, but since Khachanov is doing, playing so well with the conditions, closing the roof, changing it at all, breaking the momentum of Khachanov. Because remember, he was, I believe he was up a set and a break when they closed the roof. Changed a lot. You don't want to change anything when you're on a roll. Like, for instance, Gasquet's playing Djokovic. He don't even want to change balls. Every time he wins a point, he has to have the ball that he won the point with. So in the Khachanov match, this is the thing Ryan Harrison said, though, that I thought was particularly interesting. He said, this weather feels better today when Rafa was playing because you get the cloud coverage. It's cooler, less humidity, although still more humidity than what Roger ended up getting today. But I thought this was interesting. Even though Harrison lost first round, he was still playing doubles. So he said what he noticed was that it's harder to hit aces. This court is really slow, and is when the weather cools off, you really see how freaking slow this court is. Case in point right here, look at the Nadal-Khachanov stats. Khachanov in super slow conditions able to hit 22 aces. Rafa, 0 aces. I know Rafa's not known for his aces, but you expect Rafa to get 1 or 2, especially in a match like this where he really needs to come up with something special to get ahead. And conditions were so slow, 0 aces. Ironically, they're even in the winners to unforced errors differential. Rafa's plus 11, 49 over 38. Khachanov 66 over 55, plus 11 as well. Only 6 points decides this match as Rafa wins 162 to 156. I think one thing that you don't really see in here is a big part of the match was Khachanov had 3 double faults. In which set was it? I can't remember which set, but one of the tiebreak sets, Khachanov could have won it. 3 double faults. And I want to say the other tiebreak, Khachanov, I think he started with a double fault. So 22 aces on 9 double faults, and those 9 double faults, or at least most of them, came at really bad times, like when he absolutely needed to win a point in a tiebreaker to stay alive. So one thing I noticed in this match is when conditions are this slow, the rallies can be long and brutal, and one edge I'm starting to see, which is a major edge for Roger Federer and Rafa. Djokovic, too. All 3 of those guys, Roger's got the best volley, obviously. But Rafa and Joker, throughout their careers, have gotten a lot better at sensing the moment to come to the net and finish with a volley. Now, Khachanov, 60%, comes to the net quite a bit, 45 times, wins 27 of those points, so 60%. But Rafa, with the edge here, 70%, 28 out of 40 attempts. Look at Roger today, almost doubling Nick Kyrgios' number 14 of 30, 47%. Roger winning 84% of the net points. When conditions are this slow, sometimes it can be hard to come up with the winners, especially if you're having a shaky day. The way you handle that is get to the net. It's a lot easier to hit a winner when you're at the net, as long as you know how to play the net, if you have the good volley technique, and you also just got to know what is the right shot to come in. Got to be able to sense when your opponent is not going to be able to hit a good enough shot to get past you at the net. Of course, Roger's good at that. Rafa's very good at that. He's gotten better and better at that every year. Let's look at Cole Schreiber, Alexander Sasha Zverev, who I always kind of expect to lose early at the majors. Even with Ivan Lendl, like Brad Gilbert was saying, when he heard Lendl was his coach, the first thing he thought was, why did it take so long to do something like this, make a coaching move like that? My first thought was, how bad is it going to be for Sasha Zverev's long-term ego, his confidence? What is it going to do to his reputation when Lendl and him go their separate ways because it didn't work? People think of Ivan Lendl as fixing Andy Murray and helping him win majors. What will people think if they have a falling out, kind of like with Juan Carlos Ferrero? Remember, Juan Carlos Ferrero says that Sasha Zverev lacks discipline and he doesn't want to work with him. It was pretty much what happened at the end of their run earlier this year. So what if something like that happened with Lendl? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but what if it happened? What if Lendl says this guy's a freaking loser. I don't want to work with him. What if that happened? It just seems like that would be so hard to overcome the reputation, kind of like with Tiger Woods. He was doing so great, and then all the scandal hit, and I think it just tore him up mentally. He didn't want the world to see his face for a while there. He kind of wanted to hide away. I feel like maybe Sasha Zverev could experience a feeling kind of kind of like that. It's a little different. But how embarrassing would that be? Anyway, that was my first thought. So in this match, Kohlschreiber literally does everything better than Zverev, except Zverev has 9 aces to Kohlschreiber's Cole Pickle's 5 aces. But one thing that jumps out at me right away is net points won. Zverev 20 of 41, that's 49%. Cole Pickle 77%, 24 out of 31 attempts at the net. Little Shwati D lost to Kiki Nishikori today, Nishikishi. And look at the net points won. Again, 57% for Schwartzman, Shorty D. 80% for Nishikori, 24 out of 30. Raonic over Stan Wawrinka. Net points won. 73% for Raonic, 37 attempts. And Wawrinka 58%, but only 12 attempts, so 7 points off of that. Dominic Thiem aus Österreich. 57% at the net versus 45 from Taylor Fritz. Not a big difference, but still, the winner of the match. And this match, fairly close because Thiem wins 136 points. Fritzy wins 134 points. An edge there, taking care of the net. Isner over Duzi Lajovic. Net points won. 67% for Isner, 47 of 70. 75% for Lajovic. So this is the one where it doesn't hold up for me, you would think. But no, not really, because if you look at it closer, Isner wins the first set in a very close tiebreaker. I could have this backwards, but one way or the other. Isner wins one of the first 2 sets in a close tiebreaker, and the main thing that stands out, if you look at the individual stats on that set, is that he's doing better at net. Then Duzi wins, I think, the second set in a very close tiebreaker again, but the one thing that jumps out at me is that he did better in his win percentage at the net. Federer and pair, Federer 31% higher on net points won. Federer Nishioka 28% higher. Nadal over Popsicle 82% versus 48% for Nadal in favor at the net. So I'm just starting to notice an early trend for me on this very slow court where it can be hard to hit a winner. Being able to go up to the net and win the point there, extremely valuable, and who better to do that than Roger Federer? So let's look forward. It looks like Djokovic is going to beat Gasquet. He will play Yao Souza, I believe, next. And Roger will play Millman. Now, some of you may be wondering, who is John Millman? Now, one of the things I thought when I was trying to foresee any danger in this Millman matchup, remember the Donskoy debacle? Last year in Dubai, Roger loses to Donskoy. Quite a debacle because one thing I'll never forget about that match was one corner of the lights went out, but they just kept playing for some reason. Weird things happened at that match. But afterwards, Roger was asked what happened, and Roger's response was basically honestly, I didn't know what to expect from this guy because I've never played him and don't know much about him. Couldn't really find any video of him on YouTube. I was I don't know what to expect from this guy, and kind of hurt me in this match. So my first worry was, what if Millman getting to his 4th round? He's never done well. Look at this really quick. This is his performance timeline. He's either qualifier or first round or absent all these years up to 2015. But look, his best results: first round, second round, first round, third round, first round, third round at Wimbledon, first round, third round at the U.S. Open last year. His best result ever is a third round in a major, and he's in the 4th round now. So maybe he's having a special year, and if Roger's never played him, maybe there could be some danger there because this is a guy who doesn't know what to expect from, and this guy's really hot right now. He's doing the best he ever has.
It's a damn Hansel. He's so hot right now.
If you look at his results at the Masters, second round, first round, second round, qualifying. He's never even gone this far at a Masters tournament, let alone the U.S. Open. But what do you know? Roger and Millman actually have played in the 4th round, the round of 16, in Brisbane 3.5 years ago. Federer lost the first set to Millman. Maybe that was a case of didn't know what the heck to expect from the guy. Millman was getting a higher first serve percentage in the match, but other than that, Roger beat him in everything. So Roger does have a little experience against this guy. 3.5 years ago. Don't know how much that'll help today, but at least he's played him before. I tweeted this. Check this out. This was in the post-match on-court interview for Roger. Best Federer quote of the U.S. Open thus far. On next opponent John Millman, Roger revealed that he had actually practiced with him before Wimbledon. They were hitting on grass. We know each other quite well. Super friendly guy. I'm very happy for him that he's gotten so far. But now I will try to stop him. That's just how it goes on the tennis tour. Finally, before we get out of here, let me just tell you what Millman said when he was asked about playing Roger. He said, if I play against Roger, I think he's the best that's ever played the game, in my opinion. I've got a lot of respect for Roger. I've got a lot of respect for his team. I've good respect for Severin Luthi. I did a little bit of training with him after the French, hit a little bit on the grass. He's got an aura about him. Definitely a player I've looked up to throughout my career. But it's like anything. I've never been a fan of playing anyone's reputation. When you go on court, it's about engaging in battle. I definitely won't be thinking about these things if I play against Roger. One thing to point out, put this on the screen. Look at Roger's first serve placement. In the deuce court, 77% hitting the corners, hitting the magic spots where magic things happen. 65% hitting on the ad side. Like I said, in the slow court, it can be really hard to hit aces, like I was saying Ryan Harrison was saying this. So this is a really good sign that Roger's hitting those spots, because no matter how slow the court is, if you hit those spots, good things will happen. And I think as Roger plays more, he'll be able to get that serve even more dialed in for a Novak Djokovic. We hope. All right, folks. Well, this is a way longer episode than I wanted to get into, so thank you for watching. Mr. Goat would like to say thank you as well. I sure hope this won't be the last late-night celebration beer we have after a Roger Federer win. I hope everyone out there is a little bit more optimistic after a lot of nice things that we talked about today. See ya!